I am Vess. I work as a reckoner for the Assembly, and my rank is second rank. I have done this job for 412 years. In that time I have studied 412 different worlds. My task is simple to explain, even if the work itself is not. I look at a new species, and I tell my leaders what will happen if the Assembly tries to bring that species under our rule. I do this using a method we call the reckoning. In 11,000 years, the reckoning has never once given us the wrong answer. Not one single time. That is not luck. That is simply how well the reckoning works. Then one day, we found a small, wet world. It moved slowly around an ordinary yellow star, one star among countless billions. The reckoning studied this world's people carefully, the same way it studies everyone, and gave me its answer in one short, clear line. Result? Not dangerous. Suggested action, simple collection. I filed that answer myself, and I felt proud of it. The numbers had come together so quickly and so cleanly that I barely needed to think twice. I have never been more wrong about anything in my whole life, and yet, strangely, I was not wrong about a single number. I want to tell this story from the very beginning, so you can understand exactly how it happened. The reckoning is not a guess, and it never has been. It is a careful, patient system that let the Assembly grow across 9,000 star systems without ever losing a single war we chose to fight. To build its answer, the reckoning looks at many things about a species: how many people live on their world, how much their factories can build in a single year, how many ships they own and how strong those ships are, how much energy they can create and use, how they have fought against each other in their own history, and how those fights ended. We gather more than 400 separate points of information like this. We compare all of it against every other species we have ever studied. In the end, these numbers come together into a single result. That result tells us two simple things: how likely a species is to fight back against us, and how likely that fight is to actually change anything. If the result is low enough, we do not call on our great war fleets. Instead, we send something much smaller. We call it a vanguard, just one ship with a small crew, sent to begin bringing a new species into the Assembly quietly, often before that species even knows we exist. Humanity's numbers were almost funny. They were so small. They had only one home world in the whole universe. 8 billion people lived there, yet almost none of them had ever even left their own sky. They owned perhaps a dozen ships that could travel beyond the inner part of their own solar system, and not one of those ships carried any real weapon, only tools built for studying stars, ice, and rock. Their oldest written law was younger than the youngest standing building back on my own home world. By every single number that has ever mattered to the Assembly, Earth was nothing more than a small, easy stop on our way to somewhere bigger and far more interesting. I remember telling my student, a young reckoner named Ori, that this would be the easiest report of my entire career. Ori had studied under me for almost 20 years by then. He was clever and endlessly curious. He asked me questions constantly, the way all good young reckoners do, and most days I enjoyed answering them. That day, though, he asked me something I still think about now, all these years later. He asked, "Can any species ever truly surprise the reckoning? Can the numbers ever be wrong about what a person will choose to do?" I told him no. I told him the reckoning had 11,000 years of proof behind it, more proof than any single mind could ever hold. I told him that people, in the end, are simple creatures. Give any person a clear choice between fighting a war they cannot possibly win and living safely and comfortably under new rulers, and almost every single one of them will choose to live. I believed every word I said to him that day. I want that written down clearly, wherever this story is kept, because it matters a great deal for what comes later. Ori did not argue with me that day. He simply looked thoughtful, the way he always did right before he learned something new. I did not think much of it at the time. Now I think about the look on his face almost every single day. After that conversation, our machines searched through all of humanity's worlds and settlements, looking for the easiest place to begin our collection. They found a small station built deep into the ice of a moon the humans called Europa. It was a quiet mining outpost, far from Earth, home to only 22 humans. They had no weapons beyond their mining tools, and no help could reach them in under 4 days, even at humanity's best travel speed. The reckoning gave this plan an extremely high number. It told us there was a 99.97% chance that the humans on this station would agree to our terms within 6 hours of our first contact with them. We sent our ship, a small vanguard vessel called the Quiet Ledger, carrying a crew of 12. I watched from far away, 3 whole star systems from Europa, the same way I had watched 411 collections before this one. I was already composing the next lines of my report before anything had even begun. When the Quiet Ledger reached Europa, its captain opened a channel to the station, and spoke directly with its leader, a calm, steady woman named Commander Adayeze Okonkwo. Our translator turned her human words into words I could understand clearly. The captain told her, in the confident tone we always use in these moments, that her station now belonged to the assembly, and that she should open her doors and welcome our team inside peacefully. Commander Okonkwo refused. This did not worry me at all. Almost every new species refuses our first offer. It is simply part of how young civilizations behave when they first meet something larger than themselves. I expected her to change her mind within the hour, once our boarding team showed her exactly how little that refusal would cost her. The captain asked her, almost kindly, if she understood what she was refusing. He told her that no station of 22 people had ever successfully resisted an assembly vanguard, not once, in 11,000 years of recorded history. He meant it as a simple fact, not as a threat. I believe you, Commander Okonkwo answered. I am sure that is completely true, for every station that came before ours. Then she said something strange, something that should have told us everything we needed to know. Her voice came through calm and almost bored, as though she had said this exact kind of thing many times before. She told the captain, "You have the wrong number of doors marked on your maps of this station. We changed that a good while back. We had a feeling that someone like you might come knocking on our door, one day or another." The captain laughed softly at her words, the way one might laugh gently at a bold child. I wrote her strange comment down as nothing important at all. I had no idea, in that moment, that she had just told us, clearly and honestly, exactly how we were about to lose absolutely everything. He gave the order to send in the boarding team. 6 of our 12 crew members put on armor built to stop weapons far stronger than anything humanity owned. They walked calmly toward the entrance our old maps still called the station's main airlock. That door had not been the main entrance for nearly 4 hours. The station's chief engineer, a determined woman named Lina Ilyina, had spent that time quietly changing the whole layout of the station's defenses. She had taken the station's large ice-cutting laser, a tool built only for slicing through solid ice, and carefully moved it into a narrow maintenance path nearby. Our old maps did not even show that this particular path could safely hold any breathable air. Not one of our 6 crew members reached the center of the station. When contact with the boarding team suddenly went silent, our ship's captain grew worried. Against my recommendation, he moved the quiet ledger into low orbit, close enough to use our cameras and sensors to see exactly what had happened below. Every number available to us said we still had plenty of time to spare. We trusted those numbers completely, the way we always had, because we had never once had a real reason not to. We were still there, watching quietly, when Europa Station's power core suddenly passed a limit it had never once been built to pass. What none of our maps had ever shown us, because Commander Okonkwo had built it in complete secrecy, was a second shelter. It sat deep within the ice, 400 meters below the main station, sealed tightly shut and fully stocked with food, water and air, for exactly this kind of terrible day. In the humans' own private notes, recovered much later, they simply called this careful plan their worst case. 21 of the station's 22 humans were sitting safely inside that hidden shelter, 3 whole kilometers from the power core, when Lina Ilyina walked back alone through the dark corridors to set off the explosion by hand. She had to do it herself, because the automatic systems had been the very first thing our boarding team's own tools had shut down on their way inside. I still keep the recording of her final message before she closed the channel forever. I do not need to listen to it again to remember every single word of it. I have listened to it more than 100 times since that day, quietly searching for some number, some clear reason, that could fully explain why she chose to do exactly what she did. To this day, I have never found one. I remember the color slowly draining from my own skin the moment her signal cut off completely. I had not felt a shock quite like that since I was a very young student taking my final test to become a full reckoner, 400 long years before. The explosion destroyed the entire station. It also tore away most of the front section of our own ship and took 3 more of our crew members with it, caught helplessly in the falling wreckage before our captain could finally pull us back to safety. 21 humans lived through that day. To this day, I still do not know if Lina Ilyina was the 22nd. The ice of Europa does not give up its secrets easily, and I find that I simply cannot bring myself to mark her down as missing the way our official reports require. Doing so feels deeply wrong, somehow, as if it would reduce everything she did to one small, cold, meaningless word. I had to report everything that happened to my senior officer, a first reckoner named Kale, who has led our Ledger of Worlds for almost 1,000 years. I sat quietly with the quiet ledger's final message for 6 full days before I could bring myself to write anything at all, because I genuinely did not know what to say about Lina Ilyina. or about any part of what had happened. When I finally met with First Reckoner Kale, in a quiet room lit only by soft blue light, he asked me for one simple thing: a new number. A fresh percentage that our war councils could use to plan their very next move. This is how things have always worked among us. Every question the Assembly ever asks eventually ends in a number, because numbers are the only true language our leaders have ever fully trusted. I told him, as calmly as I could manage, that I could not give him one. At first, he did not understand me at all. He asked me to explain our numbers again, slowly, the way one might gently explain something to a much younger student. I told him that our population count was correct, that our count of their ships was correct, that every single fact within our very first report had been completely true from the start. Humanity truly did have almost nothing at all, by every number we possessed. Then where, exactly, is the problem? He asked me, clearly growing impatient. I told him about Lena Ilyina. I told him that she had walked calmly toward her own likely death, with a much safer choice sitting right behind her, completely unused, and that she chose the far harder path anyway, for reasons that had nothing to do with keeping herself alive. I explained that this was not simple bravery, not the ordinary kind we had already measured in hundreds of other species before hers. Bravery, in every species we had ever studied until that day, still asked what the true chances of survival were before deciding exactly how much to risk. What I had witnessed was something else entirely. It looked like a choice to keep fighting long after every fair and honest calculation had already said that fighting made no sense at all. First Reckoner Kale sat with me in silence for a long moment, clearly thinking hard. Then he asked me a quiet question of his own. If we sent 100 more ships instead of one, would that change what you saw? I told him no. I told him that the size of our next fleet was not the true question at all. A single ship or 100 ships would still meet the same kind of person, and that person would still choose the same difficult path. I told him that this was the entire problem, and that it frightened me more than any number ever could. He told me, gently but firmly, that the Assembly could not run itself on stories and feelings alone. He said that I still needed to give him a number, even if that number was ultimately little more than an educated guess. I understood why he asked this of me. For 11,000 years, a single number had always been enough for us, but I could not make myself write one down that day, because any number I offered him would have been a quiet kind of lie. It would tell every leader who read it that this problem too could be planned for, the same way we had planned for everything else across our long history. That if we simply sent a larger ship next time, or waited for a better moment to strike, the reckoning would still work the way it always had before. I no longer believe that it will. I told him this plainly, and for the first time in 412 years of service, I refused a direct order from a First Reckoner. I left the number blank on my final written report, and in its place, I wrote a short message instead. I wrote this: do not send another vanguard to this world, do not send a larger fleet after it either. There is no number waiting at the end of this path that we can ever hope to win against. I do not know if First Reckoner Kale will listen to me. I do not know if anyone in the Assembly will listen, not until it is too late for it to matter. But I know what I saw with my own eyes, and I know what I heard in Lena Ilyina's voice in the last calm moment before her channel finally went quiet. She was not calculating anything at all in that moment. She had already decided, long before that final moment ever arrived, that giving up was simply not a choice she was ever willing to make, and somehow, in some way I still cannot fully put into words, I believe with everything I am, that there are 8 billion more people just like her, waiting patiently on that same small, wet blue world. We counted humanity's numbers with more care than we had ever used for any other species, their total population, their handful of ships, their simple weapons and their modest factories. Every number was correct, checked carefully at least twice, and filed away without a single mistake. It may well be the most thoroughly studied species in the entire history of our ledger of worlds. And still, somehow, we missed the one thing that mattered most. It turns out that this thing was never truly a number at all, and never could have been. It was something no test and no old written record could ever measure, because it does not live in what a person has, or owns, or commands. It lives in what a person freely chooses to do, in the moment when everything they have is not enough, and they choose to stand their ground and fight anyway. I think about Ori's simple question often now, turning it over quietly in my mind. Can a species ever truly surprise the reckoning? I gave him the wrong answer on that day, long ago, and I believe I owe him, and everyone else who ever reads this report after me, the true answer at last. Yes, it can happen, and when it finally does happen, it will not look like a bigger fleet, or a stronger weapon, or an even smarter machine. It will look like just one single person, walking calmly and quietly toward a place they fully know they may never walk away from again, simply because someone else needed them to make that walk. That, in the end, is what we truly learned about the numbers we had spent 11,000 patient years trusting so completely. They were never actually wrong, not even once. They were simply never quite enough.